Good evening, and welcome to the Heikadelic Show. We would like to take this moment to let you know that viewer and listener discretion is strongly advised. So sit back, have yourself a nice cool drink or hot drink, and enjoy the show. And welcome once again to the Heikadelic Show.
You better subscribe to Pine Tree Line Outdoors, and here's why. Have a look. It's been an incredible time. Aubrey Falls. Why are we here? What is this abomination behind us? Okay.
Hey guys.
How's everybody doing?
How's it going, Hike?
Great. Excellent. Nice to see all your faces again.
Yours too, buddy. You're looking good. Even more
Thanks.
chipper.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm trying.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm trying to get outside every day and a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm into gardening and stuff like that, so I managed to do a little bit, and right away I get into it and I overdo it.
You feel the pain, yeah.
And then I hurt the rest of the day. So I just got to take it easy. Everything will be good.
Yeah. One day at a time, buddy.
Yeah,
You're moving though. Whoa, I just saw you moving your shoulders.
I know. See, look at that, eh?
Yeah, good for you. That's awesome.
Doing lots of exercises.
Yeah. Good.
So welcome our Rock Radio
Yes,
listeners,
let's welcome our guest today.
our
I bet
viewers.
you everybody's wondering where the extra picture, the pretty face is, because we all have faces for radio. I don't know what we're doing on this.
That's true.
So yes, welcome, Alyssa.
Hello,
North
thanks for
Star
having me.
Alyssa, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you guys. So thanks for the invite.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, we got a lot of interesting questions for you tonight. And so again, welcome Indie Rock Radio listeners, Twitch, YouTube, and who else? Am I forgetting anybody?
Maybe Facebook?
Yeah.
Maybe Facebook. Yeah, and Facebook. I just want to say for all our fans there in Montreal, well, the Habs won.
Yeah,
Oh, did
3-1.
they?
Yeah,
3-1,
3-1. Yeah, they
Wow.
just finished right now.
Yeah, that's what the
Okay.
Leafs get competing with our show, right? They should have
That's
won
right.
last week.
So is that bad for the Leafs then?
No, it's pretty typical.
Wow.
So, anyways, so enough about sports. We have on. I gotta look this way. Alyssa over there, and well, let's hear some. Explain to yourself what a multidiscipline mystic is.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of things. I'm an astrologer, classically trained, both in traditional and modern techniques. I'm a tarot reader for 27 years now.
Wow.
That's been, a little while. I teach. I've founded and am the head instructor for Star Mystic Academy. I do past regression. I'm a hypnotist, a Reiki master, 7th degree.
Seven.
There's
Nice.
probably a few, yeah, probably one or two things that I'm forgetting, but that's the short list.
Nice.
That's pretty good though. Wow.
Past life regression. Sorry. Now that's
Yeah.
what you were in past, like what in lifetimes before, right? What your spirit was, or
Well, yeah, well, because I think the best way, well, the way I explain it anyway, is it's like if we look at our lives, we each have a life. We each, and in that life, you have a consciousness, which is attached to a personality, which is formed by experiences, and those experiences become memories that are stored within your, I guess, soul's memory is one way to put it. And so, if you can, I guess, agree to the idea of reincarnation, then one can incarnate as many times as is necessary to experience, all different aspects of life in order to learn lots of different lessons and expand on the soul level. So the idea, anyway, is when I do any sort of regression work, or if I use astrology as a tool to talk to a person about their past lives, what we're doing is sort of tapping into that continuum of conscious existence. So, in a sense, it's interesting because every person is very unique and everything's different, and some things come up that I don't expect, and other times things will come up in these sessions that are kind of universal. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
nice.
It's a pretty
So,
fascinating thing.
do you believe like in like star seeds and stuff like that? Like your soul is throughout the whole galaxy or universe, whatever.
Well, yes and no. Fair warning, you're probably not going to get a lot of straight answers out of me because I'm pretty expansive in my thinking. I kind of approach life as being a bit of yes and a bit of no. So, in terms of one's soul's origin, I believe that, a soul's origin is pretty much, from the same source. However, it can come through in a lot of different ways. I kind of ascribe to the idea of all roads lead to Rome, or all dogs go to heaven, whichever you prefer. And so we all sort of come from the same place, and we all return to the same place, but there's lots of different ways that we take that journey. So yeah, I'm open, and I've seen a lot of really interesting things and hinging on bizarre, but that's what makes it really fascinating. It's fun to do. Yeah.
Wow.
So Alyssa, so you're a spiritual systems analyst, I see, and so I guess tell us more about that spin on what, because I'm intrigued. I believe that let's say people in various, let's say, leadership positions rely on folks like yourself to help as a guide, right? So I find that your title very very interesting.
Well, I kind of approach it, my clients, my client base, my students, with throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Using lots of different avenues to sort of attack any number of problems, or to sort of help a person to kind of find their direction in life. And sometimes that might involve using tools like astrology, or it can use tools like coaching, or in fact Reiki, or different healing modalities, or it can just be sitting down and having a conversation. So I look at it in those terms because the more you get into sort of why a person does what they do, what's blocking them from progressing in the direction they want to go, or what's kind of keeping them stuck in certain aspects of their thinking. I don't think that human beings are so simple as to say, oh, well, all you need is Xanax, you'll be fine. I mean, not that that's not a helpful thing in some cases, but I think we're very complex beings, and so we have to kind of approach, our lives, and with a very open mind, and be kind of interested in how to get a person to where they want to go. So yeah, I use lots of tools to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you work with let's say any leaders in business, like let's say CEOs, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I have in the past. I don't have any in my current roster, but I've worked with a few different celebrities. I've worked with, people, you name it, with the exception of perhaps like presidents or kings or queens, but,
Yeah.
Pretty much all over the place, There's
That's what I was
nobody I'm
going to
not interested.
say. Yeah, we should try and hook you up with Trudeau because he really needs some help.
I think we all
Yeah,
do.
she can't give him the help he needs, but this isn't a political show.
Yeah, nice save. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So,
So
sorry, Ringo, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so when did you first sort of,
get into this?
and yeah, how did that start?
Yeah, so that was a twisty, turny road that took me down places I never thought I would go. I didn't plan on sort of doing this as a living. I'm an artist as well, so I had a pretty lengthy career in graphic design for lots of years. I've been a freight broker for high value freight, cross border kind of stuff. I've been a bartender, a grocery packer, a waitress one or two times, So I've done lots and lots of different things, and this kind of stuff has always sort of been around in my life in one way or another. My dad, before me, he was an astrologer, and I remember as a teenager, he used to talk about, oh, the moon's in Scorpio and it's trine Uranus, and I'm like, yeah, okay, where's the boys? Because I had no interest at that time, but it was kind of funny because as my life evolved and different things would occur, I found myself sort of continuously gravitating towards more esoteric and metaphysical topics. And what was it, 2012, I did the art for the Syrian Starseed Tarot, and that's where it kind of started to really flip. And I started to recognize that there was something a little more odd about me than I had first accepted. In that, I kind of don't think like a lot of people think. And that's, it's kind of a broad way to say that I have a specialized set of knowledge and a different way of looking at the human condition. And that had always sort of been on board with me, but I just never really put it into the more esoteric and metaphysical kind of stuff. It was just, I looked at things the way I did. And then over time, I got into, I had actually my first tarot deck I got from my dad. By getting it, I mean that I kind of commandeered it. I think that'd be a good way to put that.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Or borrowed indefinitely, and from there, that was kind of a hit and miss thing. I would kind of play with it, and then I'd put it down, and then I'd play with it and put it down. And then, quite a few years ago, I got back into astrology as like a serious study. And once I started doing that, everything just really shifted for me, because then I started to recognize really myself, if I'm to be truthful. I started to look at the commonalities in the human experience, and I was able to understand sort of the conditions that I experienced growing up as a younger person, and where I found myself in at this point in my life, and after seeing a very consistent path that unfolded, I was like, okay, there's something to this, which I've always, incidentally, I've always been what I like to think of as a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, which probably sounds very contradictory, but I've always been very kind of skeptical about these kinds of things, because I think, like most people, you're going, well, how does it even work? And I learned how it works. And after that, I was like, okay, now I've got something I can play around with and explore, and then use to help with other people through their lives. So, like
Did
I said,
it scare you at first, though?
No,
like,
no, not really. No, I think I maybe later on down the road. Well, I think I'm just insatiably curious. That's my problem. So I'm like one of those people, I'm like, oh, what's under that? Uh-oh, probably shouldn't have looked.
Too late now.
That's usually yeah. But there's really not much that spooks me in that way. But I think it's just again, it's really sort of exploring and trying to find the edges of the universe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a few questions actually, but so
I love
what
questions.
about? So I certainly get, like, again, your website's brilliant. I know some people in this field, and it's how do you make money from it, right? And yeah, you could read, you could do all. Really think that there's an opportunity to in what you're doing, the coaching and maybe helping people develop their own skill, let's say. And so
Sure.
tell us about so you run classes or one-on-ones. How does that work? And tell us
I do
about,
it all.
okay.
Yeah. So I
Online,
do. Yeah. Well, since COVID descended upon us, which is kind of funny because I remember I had a blog post on my website. I think I published in I want to say either late 2019 or no, early 2019, somewhere around in there. Kind of describing some of the conditions that we've all been enjoying with COVID, and that has kind of forced, I think, many people to really adapt their businesses or just their daily lives, obviously. And so I kind of went from offering in-person classes and courses and shifting that over to, more online stuff. And I do a lot of
Right.
online consultations and, so lots of personal astrology, some electoral, some synastry, different things, but it's kind of cool in the sense that, my reach has expanded. So, I can talk to people pretty much anywhere in the world. I've got students and clients in Australia, all the way to UK, all over Canada, US, so lots of people to talk to, which is always awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Alyssa, what's at the core of your, let's say, your skill set, strength, that sort of thing? Like, what is it? Is it something like, you can read people, you're sensitive, or do you practice Wicca or any of that stuff? Like, what's at the core?
Well, I think I would just go back to saying insatiable curiosity, because I would classify myself probably as being a spiritual person, but I don't follow a particular religion.
Yeah.
I'm not atheist. I believe that there is a higher power, a creative primary source of intelligence and consciousness and energy. But I think it's probably just the curiosity and certainly wanting to be of service in the world and leave it a little bit of a better place than how I showed up into it. So
Right.
but yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys have any other questions? I have a bunch of them.
Oh, I'm sure.
I love
There's lots.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
when people approach you, what kind of, say, for like we're talking past aggression and all that, what kind of expectations do people have when they approach you, and how do they
Oh
approach
my
you?
God. I think it's typically I see people in terms of like past life regression. The main things they're looking for is, have I had a previous lifetime? And if I did, where was it? What was I doing? How did I live? How did I die? And other people are coming because they have had an experience or a series of experiences that lead them to feel a very strong sense that they have had a past life that is in some way intruding on the current incarnation. So that can be things like feeling stuck in a pattern of life, or sometimes fears and phobias will pop up, which is really interesting. And they're looking for a way to alleviate those problems. But it's very broad spectrum. I think the most common thing, so is sort of trying to understand the landscape of self and identity, which is very broad.
Right.
Lots of ways to define. Yeah.
So listen, not to put you on the spot or anything, are you able to, let's say with past life, like what's the process for you? Is it like, could you go through each panel and just sort of give us like the short version of where we might have come from? Because I'm pretty sure Heiko came from Mars, but that Elon wants to go there. He's got a Mars thing right here.
Yeah.
I don't
So the
like.
process was, yeah. So the process with past life regression is actually done through hypnosis. So
Right.
it's a little bit more complicated than just going, you were definitely a peasant. You were definitely
Right.
mucking out stalls, or, which, believe it or not, that's probably the most common thing. Sorry?
If Ringo was a peasant, he sure ain't today. But yeah, I have this. I've never done it, but I have this feeling that if I did have a past life, I was probably some kind of almost like a warrior leader kind of thing, right? Because I'm just like so drawn to all of that, and
yeah.
So
yeah,
and it's kind of my nature to figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do a lot of people do that? Go from, say, a high level down to a lower level in their next life?
In my experience, it's not so linear as that. So when we think of incarnation or reincarnation, we kind of think of it as a consecutive thing. So you're born, you live, you die, and then you're going, okay, what do I want to do next? I know,
right.
I'm going back to the same, and in a sense, it kind of does work that way. But what I've found is that it seems like it's more spherical than that, meaning that you're not sort of, it's not about being higher or lower in a hierarchical sense. It's more like, what do you need to focus on in this incarnation? What do you need to learn? And it's kind of like you have these major headings of experience in life. We've all experienced losing a loved one. We've all experienced, your I don't know, whatever your big moment is. We've all had one of those really big moments where we feel like, the whole world can see us. Sometimes good moments, sometimes not so great moments.
Right.
We all have, we all to some degree will have experienced love. It can be love for your family, love for a romantic partner, love for your cat. I don't know about that because my cat is sketchy.
Aren't they all?
Really, at the end of the day, aren't they all a little sketchy? But yeah,
needy.
So it's really it's really about coming into the life, to the physical life, in order to achieve a greater or deeper understanding of those big heading topics, and then we experience them in a lot of little ways, and there's this evolutionary process that occurs throughout the entire life. So the way you were when you were 15 compared to the way you are when you're 45, you could almost say you're two different people, because your understanding has increased, let's hope.
Yeah.
Your experience has expanded your thinking, let's hope. And so if you think about just the finite terms that happens in, just imagine that over countless incarnations. So maybe you will learn to love your family as a son in this lifetime, love your family as a mother in your next lifetime, love your family as someone without a family the time after that. So it's really more about, adjusting
Balancing
to what the evolutionary process is. Yeah. And that's where we get the idea of karma from. And a lot of people think of karma as crime and punishment. It's like you were a bad little monkey, so you're coming back as a snail this time. It's not really a crime and punishment as much as it is a, evolution.
Yeah.
So it's a scientific fact that the evolution of the human brain, until you're 25, your frontal lobe is not fully developed. And you can tell that with teenagers who have no sense of reason whatsoever and just do really dumb shit.
Yeah.
But there could be something a little bit more to that, and I think it opens them up to and closes them to some extent on different experiences in the sort of metaphysical sense. And well, and I watched a documentary about it recently, and I thought, you know what, that explained a lot. I used to think it was people would go through growth spurts, so every 5 years you sort of change.
And that's true. There's actually a lot of truth to that. And one of the ways that, you know, in my work that I'm able to quantify that is like literally looking at a natal chart, or most people call a birth chart. And, and within that chart is a representation of 72 years that a life can sort of expect. That doesn't mean you're going to die at 72 years, because clearly people outlive that all the time. But that's like, thank God. You know, yeah, well, congratulations. But the idea though is within that wheel, you're seeing like all of these different phases of growth that we experience. So like when we're little, we only have a few wrinkles in our brains. That's why we eat weird things off the floor and, you know, punch yourself in the face.
I always
things like
did that as a bet.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different story. That probably happens somewhere in the, I don't know, 13 to 22 range with most people. You know.
Yeah.
But
You did that last week.
you can,
Well, 13 to 22
so
brain. Oh wait.
I'm just thinking that 72. I better get cracking, start doing things quickly.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Sure. Well, no, just have lots of fun. Have lots and lots of fun. Do things from that perspective.
Okay, like when you hypnotize people or do the regression, etc. Have you ever sort of thought, I'm not going to tell them that when they come round? You know what I mean? Or do you just not sugarcoat anything? You just tell them straight, whether it's good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I record it. I always let my clients know that that's what we're doing, because what happens when you're in a hypnotic state. So the first time I was hypnotized, I looked at the woman who was going to hypnotize me, and I said, if you make me cluck like a chicken, I know where you live. So, you know, because most of us are used to thinking of hypnosis in that way of like stage hypnotists, where it's like, you know, you get a guy to dance around like a ballerina, and he's like 350-pound football player. Just looks odd, but it's, you know, pretty entertaining. You know, so
I've tried to have that happen, and it never works.
Well, it depends on the person. So everybody can be hypnotized. Not everybody's willing to be hypnotized. Right. So that's a big factor. And I mean, I always kind of talk about hypnosis or trance state, that shift in our brainwave states. Like if you've ever watched a movie, you liked the movie, you watched the movie ends, and you're like, I don't know what happened. It's because you've shifted your level of conscious awareness. And the same as if you've driven somewhere, especially on route, like a route that you're used to taking all the time, you drive there, it's a 20-minute drive, and you're like, how did I not run anybody over? You know, and
I rode off my car last year doing that.
Okay, maybe that's a bad example.
But sometimes you get somewhere and you have a gap, right? Where you don't remember, how did I get from here to here?
Muscle memory.
It's just, it's just like empty. So is that like daydreaming? Your mind just goes somewhere else?
It's very similar, because essentially your mind has multiple levels of consciousness that it's running all the time. Like science says, you only use 10% of your brain. I don't believe that that's true. You use 100% of your brain, just 10% of the time. But, you know, the idea that I think that's generous in my case. But we use 100% of our brains. There's just some areas of the brain that will be more active depending on what it is that you're doing. You know, if you're in conversation, there's going to be parts of your brain that are going to be firing and lit up and just really having a good time. And other parts of your brain are going to be like, well, I'm just going to take care of breathing, you know, nothing important. So you're still using the organ itself, right? But with hypnosis, what we're doing is we're inducing or bringing you into a state of consciousness, helping you to sort of reach a different state of consciousness but in a very purposeful way. So, actually, I have on my Academy's YouTube, I have a few different hypnosis, or just mild hypnosis things you can listen to if you want to experience it. And most people experience it as a very pleasant state of being because you're very relaxed, and you'll feel, some people feel a little dozy, a little bit drifty at the very worst. I haven't had anybody comfortable or unhappy, or feeling terrible. And most people are cognizant through the experience. So it's not like I'm going, you're going to go home and you're going to do all the dishes so your wife will love you more. I wish it worked like that. But we become more suggestible at the alpha state of brainwave. So the brainwaves will move at a certain amount of oscillations per second. And in that alpha brainwave state, which we go into all the time, naturally and automatically without anybody having to get you there, that's when you're pretty suggestible. So I always tell people, when you're watching the news, make sure you're paying attention, because like the little ticker we have going on at the bottom here, that kind of stuff stimulates certain parts of your brain while other parts of your brain are doing other things. And so even if, like you talk about, people used to bring people into court, and they would go to a hypnotist to recall like a license plate number, right? Because to recover memories, as it were, because the conscious brain's job is to basically keep you from running out into traffic or other things that could result in being living impaired. Whereas the subconscious brain, all its job is to just take things in constantly.
Bring it in.
And so we're using the subconscious mind as sort of the gateway to those deep soul memories that we all have, believe it or not. And it's really kind of interesting to see what surfaces, because as I mentioned before, there's some things that are very, very universal. And then there'll be other things that are so unique to the individual that you couldn't possibly fabricate it if you wanted to. Which that was when I first started. That's one of my big things. Like, how do you know you're not making it up? And I get asked that all the time. Yeah.
Well, Alyssa, I'm just gonna cut in here for a second. We do a little trivia with George, and it's called George's Backside.
Yeah, I'll show you a backside of mine.
Yeah, we're gonna see one of George's backsides, and please, if you can figure out what George's backside is, let us know.
It's the backside of an album cover, a vinyl album cover.
Yeah.
It's a tough one this week.
Oh. Well, it's not Alice Cooper.
No, it's not Alice Cooper.
Is that the price tag in the top corner?
This
other side, yeah.
No.
Oh.
No, it's the skew thing.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting picture.
It's not Pink Floyd.
Looks like a typewriter.
Yeah,
definitely a typewriter.
But it's got funky symbols on it too.
I know who it is.
Oh, here we go.
I know who it is. Who it is.
It's just read the title. It's read the title.
Yeah. I won't give it away. I'll give it. I'll give it a little bit in case there's any jokers out there.
Okay. All right.
I got no dice on that one.
It's before your time.
I'll guarantee. Yeah, but I'll guarantee you've probably drank to it. And speaking of drinking, I think it's about time we. I don't know if you have a drink with you, but if you do, I think George is going to play a little song that we drink to.
Song that we play, and everybody drinks to it, including all our fans. There we go.
Well, I guess I came a little underprepared.
Well, if you want to go grab a drink, do you think anybody out?
I didn't actually drink alcohol.
Is anybody out in Facebook land? Guess who that is, or can I tell them yet?
Yeah. Are there any comments? I haven't seen.
I know who it is. I got it, George. I got it.
You didn't read the name of the band there, did you?
Yeah, not
sure.
all.
Sure. Shame the devil, and tell the truth.
Yeah. No, I did. I saw it. I saw it.
Steve Miller.
Yeah.
You cheated? You're saying he cheated?
No, I just read real close.
Yeah, you just had it right up to Steve Miller Band.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's the Steve Miller Band. Yes, it is.
Crashed
Yep.
and burned one.
That's the front.
Look at that.
Oh,
Yeah, Steve Miller.
Yeah.
living in
1987, I think this was.
1987.
Oh, that's
Great old tunes.
That is what
That's
you
not
don't
exactly
get this.
before my time.
1987. I was 13. I
Oh,
probably
stop it.
would have been listening to Metallica then.
Wow.
You don't get this with MP3s, do you? Oh, let's
No.
artwork and
Yeah, no kidding, eh?
Yeah.
I was in college. Okay, so Alyssa, I think I have a practical use for your talent. I have an external hard drive that I have 160 gig on, and I haven't accessed it since 2010. And I brought it to hackers and whatnot, trying to figure out what my password is. It gives me a hint.
Oh my
But-
God.
For 2 years straight, I tried to access, like, I tried every password in the book. So maybe some kind of a hypnotic state would help me with the password, right?
It
Possible.
potentially could. It potentially could. Yeah.
All right, so sign me up for that. The past life regression. I'm interested in that as well. So we'll have to. I'll
Yeah.
email your site, text your site. So if you want to find Alyssa, she's at North Star Mystic. That's NorthStarMystic.com.
Yes.
Well,
And it's really
Look down
cool
on the
because
banner.
there's this service bot, I think, that comes up, and if Alyssa's online or whoever's online with her team over there, they
Yep.
can get right back to you. And yeah, she's got a lot of services.
There's a lot of stuff going on that site. It's very cool.
Very
and if
busy
you're
lady.
not-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not already, note to leaders within companies and stuff like that. And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of obviously a lot of life coaches out there and stuff like that. But when you're faced with making decisions for a large organization, it's sometimes good to get a little help. And I'll bet you'd find a lot more people in those types of jobs are interested in that. But they may not broadcast it to their organization. But if you look at all of the like presidents and world leaders, they have someone they're connected with, a psychic, what have you. But anyway,
Yeah, Ronald Reagan.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I mean, I've gone back further than that. Wasn't Hitler? Didn't he have like personal astrologers, and he wouldn't sort of do any movements till he had all that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about Hitler per se.
Yeah, I've read
but I
that.
know Queen
Yeah, I've read
Elizabeth.
that.
Yeah,
George, I
Queen
thought
Elizabeth
talking-
I, she was famous for. Sorry.
What was that?
No, I thought we weren't talking about hate.
No,
So-
I'm just saying as leaders. I mean, like
Yeah.
No, yeah, he did. Actually, Napoleon way back as well. I mean, it's been known to, and if you look at things like Illuminati and all of these almost sort of organizations, they have embedded a lot of I'll say
Yeah, because in my early 20s, I read a lot of books like the Black Magic and all that, and there's one particular, and there's fictional books as well. But there's a particular writer in England called Dennis Wheatley, who wrote back in the 30s and 40s, and he had a series of books, and one of them was called "The Used Dark Forces," and it was actually about that, how the Germans used whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of leaders throughout history always had that person they would confide with, to make decisions and things like that. They're whatever they call it. So it's a art that's been around for a long time, right?
Reading the bones and things like that, the soothsayers and those kind of people.
Exactly. You go back to many times, and everyone had their either a Wiccan or soothsayer.
Yeah,
all of that, right?
Wicca only really came Wicca only really came into being right around the 1960s, but there is evidence going as far back as the Sumerians with their cylinder seals that they were aware of the planetary positions, and they were aware of the 7 visible and the 2 luminaries. That goes all the way back, like I said, to Sumerian civilizations, the cradle of civilization. Yep. Then you get into Mesopotamia, Egypt, you know, all throughout the European countries. Like Queen Elizabeth I was famous for using John Dee, and John Dee was an astrologer, a mathematician, a librarian, and he also did what was called what's the word I'm looking for? Summoning or conjuring angels. He used what was thought of as Enochian script. Well, actually, it became known as Enochian script because he and his partner, his work buddy, were conjuring angels, and his work buddy, I can't remember the guy's name right now, would have all of these symbols and characters that he would get, you know, through scrying and some other different, you know, things. And they started copying this stuff down, and they were given definition and meaning for it. And then later on, it was used in ceremonial magic, like within King Solomon's seals. There was, what do you call them? The Golden Dawn. Everybody's heard of Aleister Crowley, and you know, so you know, this whole idea of, you know, esoteric magical sort of working. You know, it's been around as long as there's been people, really. It's just in terms of whether it's for divination or if it's for personal expansion, you know, you know, whatever those things are. You know, there's a long storied history of it. You know.
Yeah.
Well, here's a message from Keisha. She's saying, is Alyssa giving any advice or doing any readings virtually on the show?
Would you be able to do something like that?
I do that kind of thing all the time. I can do that through my Facebook page, actually.
Wow.
So, but it depends what you want. I mean, because like I can break out these guys. I use my tarot cards all the time.
I want to know how the stairs in the pyramid melted.
I want to know that too.
Yeah.
Obviously, we weren't the first, you know, smart civilization.
Oh, far from it. In fact, you're probably, you know, the interesting thing, if you look at the evolution of man or people, depending on what your preference is, you know, we have historically, we've done a lot of really miraculous things with no, you know, quote unquote technology like what we know today. You know, I love talking about the pyramids because, you know, how, just how, you know, and there's a lot of guesswork and conjecture. Yeah. You know, and they're just learning now that there was no conceivable way that those things could have been built strictly by slaves alone, because that took artisans and craftspeople. So, you know, last time I checked.
And what's hot enough to melt granite? Right, one of the hardest stones. Like, what can melt that?
Yeah. Well, even the size of the boulders and the precision. They tried recreating that kind of stuff with modern day equipment, and they couldn't get it as precise. But the one thing I always like that you bring up pyramids is there was one TV show, they had the most unique use of why a pyramid even exists, which was Stargate. Did you ever watch that show, Stargate? The pyramid was a landing pad for a spaceship.
Yeah.
It fit right on top of it, and that was how they came in and out. And I thought, brilliant. What a cool idea, right?
Well, it definitely makes for a pretty spectacular show.
Yeah.
There'd be no where's their landing today?
Well, it's like with the Mayans, right? Their calendar. I mean, how they knew when the eclipses were occurring and would do things accordingly to when the solar eclipses were going to happen. Where did they get that knowledge from?
Because it's actually
Cycles.
It's funny because we just had a major, well, not a major, but we just had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on, I think it was the 26th.
Yes, it was.
And it's funny because there's a lot of Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation though, because as intelligent as we are in this day and age, there's a lot of things we just miss the boat on. And
Yeah.
lunations or watching the phases and the motions of the luminaries, particularly the moon. So that's what a lunation is. It has been around again since people have been. There's always been a fascination with the night sky and just looking at the Milky Way, where there was all that light pollution. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in Washington State, and more than one place that I lived while growing up was out in the boonies, and you could sit out at night and you could literally see the band of the Milky Way passing over the top of you, and there's something hypnotic about that. And if you think about it, that's been there since humans have had eyes to observe, and so over the course of our existence, we've had time to observe these things, and it's only been within I don't know, the last 4,000 years plus or minus that we have been tracking that. So when we have eclipses, they happen about every 6 months. So they always come in a series. There'll be, relatively speaking, 4 and more every year, and they'll all sort of go through certain from an astrological perspective rather than an astronomical perspective, they'll go through sort of a series that will influence events on the planet, or what we like to think of as mundane events in the world. So it's, I was just reading about that the other day, actually, with the whole idea of eclipses. And, I can't remember exactly which civilization it was, but they started recording when these eclipses would occur. Because here's the thing, they used to think of an eclipse as being actually a very bad thing. They would think of an eclipse as representing the death of a king. So,
Wow.
And there was a whole lore
every
around
28 days.
that they would.
Oh, sorry, that's full moon. No,
Yeah. Oops.
Whole bunch of kings.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
No, that's the difference between werewolves and not werewolves. But anyway,
right.
Same
Gotcha.
thing. And so they used to create what they would call a false king, because the sun in astrological terms would represent the king, the king of the land. And so if the king died, that could potentially throw the entire nation into chaos and war. And so when they knew that an eclipse was coming, it would sort of blot out the light of the sun. And so therefore it would signify, in a way, blotting out the life of the king, because the sun gives life. So they would, if you look in Vedic astrology, there's a lot of rules, or you might want, or I shouldn't say rules, but suggestions about how one should behave during those times so as to avoid any ill consequences. And further to that idea, there's a lot of scientific study around that, in terms of like animals. They just act differently. The birds will stop singing just for the period that the sky is black, and then small animals will burrow, and other larger mammals, they just sit real still. So there's something to the shift in the energy that's beyond just being a phenomena of optics, I guess.
The light change or something, right?
Yeah.
So do we have any questions from any of our listeners from Indie Rock Radio? If you're listening and you want to tune over to Facebook or YouTube and send us in a message, you could ask Alyssa a question. Do we have anything there, Mr. Ringo?
Not yet. Richard was
not yet, eh?
The comment.
You guys are too quiet. Come on.
I don't.
It's not every day we have Alyssa on our show, so come on, get to it.
Yeah.
Get your fingers in motion.
Yeah.
Do you believe in like astral projection and stuff like that?
I believe it's possible. Again, it's kind of a complicated subject, because how do you define astral projection? Some people think of lucid dreaming as astral projection, and other people think that, it's just a state of a shift in your consciousness. which I think would be kind of true now that I'm thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I'm totally open to the idea, right? I don't think there's really anything under the sun that is impossible, but there's a whole lot of things that are maybe improbable.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So, Alyssa, you've got
So
your
how
tarot
about you guys?
Oh.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
So,
So I wanted to ask you guys.
What do you want to
Wyatt,
ask us?
are you feeling something
I'm
in particular
asking you
from
guys
one
are
of us?
believers.
I'll
Oh,
I-
believer.
Say that again?
I'm a
Sure.
believer.
Yeah.
I believe that I don't know whether it is a lucid dreaming, whether it is an OBE or astral projection, but I have seen myself from upstairs, like just looking down. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
I have like
Yeah.
been to different places in dreams, and then go there in life, and like everything is the exact same as what I saw.
So are you sure you didn't just drop a mirror, bend over to pick it up and go, oh, wow.
Well, that could have been it too, but no, it was when I was younger, and as I said, once I started, it scared me. But once I started doing drugs and stuff, like
Yeah.
smoking weed and drinking with the boys, I lost it. I stopped doing it, and because it really scared me. I thought I was weird for doing shit like that, and
Okay.
yeah, I didn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Alyssa, Richard has a question. What does she feel happens after death? Is there anything after this, or is this it?
Ooh. That's
That's a
great
big question.
I am a firm and staunch believer that this is absolutely not it. But in terms of like a process of what happens, I have some philosophy, but I can't tell you anything really definitive. What I believe happens from my own personal perspective is that we leave the physical body, and from that point we take some time on the other side of the proverbial veil and decide what to do next. Whether or not you want to reincarnate into another physical body on Earth or perhaps somewhere else, or if you want to take a break, or if you're done, or if you're like, you know what, I just kind of want to be a lima bean. Let's see how that goes. because
So
I
you
think
think
of it
it's
in terms of.
you
Go
think
ahead.
it's actually a choice you can make of what you want to do next?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think, but we have a lot of guidance in that. I don't think that we're left to our own devices as a singularity. I think we have a lot of, guidance from much larger intelligences that can see things a little bit more expansively than we can. And that's not to say that human beings were stupid. I think it just sort of is, a product of the vastness of creation. So when I think of God, I don't think of some old dude sitting on a cloud waiting to spank me because I did a bunch of stuff I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibility is there, but I find that whatever created all that isn't so capricious as to have to spend time doing that. It's not that bored. It's just not. And I think we all possess a piece of that. And so because we're all sort of, I mean, most of us, I think, most human beings will have sort of a feeling that we're all connected. Even if you're not religious or spiritual, there's a sense that everything is connected. Like I always tell my students, don't forget that there's not one thing on this planet that doesn't touch something else. So whether it's your feet on the ground or the roots of a tree or the ocean or your cat, everything is touching something else. Yeah. I'm a huge cat lover anyway.
Okay.
I know it's not shocking, but but
this is Brixton.
What's his name?
Brixton. All of our animals are bees. So we've got 3 dogs and 2 cats and a rabbit.
Yes.
There you go.
I have 2 cats. My one cat is named after the cat in Alien with Sigourney Weaver. She was my hero growing up. And then and then my other cat, who's like 3/4 evil and the rest of her is just cute. Her name's Andromeda. And she's
cute.
She's from somewhere. Yeah, but that kind of back to that idea of. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, notion that, I guess, back to Richard's question, if
Mhm.
you look at, say, a scientific approach versus a spiritual approach, I think those
Mhm.
who mentioned about, God or spiritualism, I think if you believe in that and you practice it, uh, then you have to believe that there's something on the other side, because and I used to be a ghost hunter, actually, and so I looked at the analytic side of it. But
Mhm.
I often ask people that don't believe in ghosts. Um, I'll ask them, "Hey, do you go to church?" First, but I don't believe in ghosts. Yeah, okay, so there you go. That's pretty hypocritical, because you start a session, you open the session, you close the session. All of the spiritual stuff happens in between,
Yep.
potentially, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
it's I think it's kind of like Richard's question is interesting, although if you're open to the idea that there's something else, then great. Because frankly, if there wasn't anything else, it would be very difficult for you to do your job, right?
Well,
Because like you rely on answers that are either coming from the universe, spirits. When you're using tarot cards and um,
mhm.
crystal balls or runes, or even like the
I can guarantee you I don't use crystal balls. Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it really comes down to, the personal feelings that each person has, what your philosophy is on those things, because, I see people sometimes that are just dyed in the wool non-believers, never mind skeptics. They come literally just to sit down and test me and be like,
Mm.
so what am I thinking? I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
Yeah,
know. Why would I know
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't
yeah.
really want to know what you're thinking. Because what I'm
Yeah.
doing is it's not so much about tapping into something that is unattainable to anybody else. I think of myself a lot like a mechanic, from the standpoint that not everybody can do what I do. That's why people come to me, because they can't do it for themselves as
Mm.
easily. You know, and I mean, the body of knowledge that I have amassed, is okay. I mean, I think it's okay, because there's people out there that know a heck of a lot more than I do. But the way I kind of look at it is if you could look at the natural world, and you can say that the moon, during certain phases, will cause the ocean to pull in or pull out. That's a
yep,
natural phenomena. So
Right.
yep,
essentially, what we're doing with astrology, as an example, is we're observing this natural phenomena over long periods of time, and we're saying that these, celestial bodies, because of their relationship to their neighbors, will have an impact on mundane affairs or daily life. When you
Mm.
use
Right.
tarot, all this is a bunch of allegory and symbolism that talks
Mm.
about those very same things. And so what I'm doing, if you can put it in those terms, is I'm just tapping into an intelligence that we all have access to. I've just spent a lot of time learning how to access it. And
Okay.
like a mechanic, he's going to learn how to change my transmission and be like, hey, maybe don't grind so many gears, you know. And he knows that because he knows what he's listening to and what he's looking at, and he knows how something should be. Whereas,
Mm.
I have no clue. That's why I go to him and I'm like, hey, I think I broke something.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Right.
did. I don't know. And
right.
so I don't know that you have to believe in something that is intangible, but I
Hmm.
think that it's, again, we all have this little something within us that says we're part of something that we can't really fully define or articulate. And
Right.
I myself did a lot of time digging into that. Like I said, that insatiable curiosity, going, well, why does it work that way?
Mm.
Yeah, because I
And
always wondered, like tarot
mhm,
cards, it's like a
yeah,
deck of playing cards, and um, there's a certain bunch of pictures in there, or whatever the cards have on them, and now you're
mhm,
randomly just turning over cards. So how do
yeah.
you relate what's on the face of the card to the person that you're talking to?
Well,
Because
there's a lot
I
that
see
goes.
it very random, right? So I don't know how that works.
It is and it isn't. So it's random in the same way that any other how would you even state this? That's a good topic actually. 'Cause there's a level of randomness to it, in the same way that there's a level of randomness to a random number generator. It's going to follow a certain logic in order to arrive at this random number, you know?
Right.
So there's programming there, so to speak. But the programming
Mhm.
there is something that is beyond, I think, simplistic terms to describe, from the standpoint that, like, I'm shuffling these cards, and then
Yep.
you're asking me a question, and I sort of, I turn over the cards, and whatever comes up, comes up. And what I'm doing is I'm interpreting the images that I see in the cards based on what I know about the symbolism and also what I feel. And so it's this sort of marriage or blending between what I feel and what I know.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a randomness to it, but kind of not at the same time. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it maybe it's a random symbol, but it helps you focus on a connection between you and the person you're talking to, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I kind of, when I teach and I tell my students, I saw somebody asked what deck I use. I use lots of different ones. I've got probably way more than I should. But I teach from, we all have our habits. Mine are books and tarot cards, but
Yep.
what I use to teach with is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and it's also known as the Universal Tarot. It's very, very common. It's been around since 1910, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was created by Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. And
Oh.
it's a fantastic learning tool, because what it is it contains, a bunch of symbolism and allegory that will describe, some universal experiences, again, in human life. So, for example, one of the classes that I teach is the Fool's Journey. So I didn't make that one up. A lot of people teach that, but I teach it perhaps a little bit differently, because I'll use
Story of my life.
I didn't
Right?
realize. I thought there was just one set of tarot cards and that was it. So there are variations.
No. There's tons and tons, and I could keep going for 10 minutes.
I have a set here. I thought there was just one set of tarot cards and it was universal. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I did the illustrations for the Syrian Starseed Tarot. So that's another tarot deck that follows sort of the patterning of the Rider-Waite, but it's done in a slightly different.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So the main thing is that, again, using these archetypal symbols. So, like, for example, with the Hermit. So what looks like a really simplistic card, because there's not a lot going on in there, contains volumes of information, and a lot of it's sort of done in a pictorial way. So it's like hieroglyphs for weirdos. So
right.
it's using those things that I perform readings. Yeah.
So Alyssa, Kathy's asking, what's the most profound moment in, I guess, your journey?
Gosh, there's been a lot. I can probably give you the most recent one on a personal level. I think going back to some of the work that I've been doing in astrology, I had a holy crap moment when I sort of started to see some of the stuff that was sort of promised, if you will, in my chart starting to unfold right before my eyes. And I'm like, whoa. And that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, there really is more to this than I thought, which again sort of drives that desire to learn even more. And I think
that would.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. And, sometimes when people come back to me like a year later and they'll be like, that thing you said? And I'm like, no idea. Not a stinking clue. But what happened? It happened. And I'm like, is that good? because I see enough people that sometimes I don't remember everything that happens in a session. But
Mhm.
you know, I think it's just
Well,
getting to interact with people is pretty
Mm.
amazing.
okay, yeah.
Alyssa,
Well, I
can okay, Heiko can ask his question, but can you read me, like, deal my tarot cards, and we'll talk about,
Sure,
you know, the
I can do a
interpretation.
quick. I do a quick couple.
Yeah, I call a listener in, but I think it would be neat to interact. So
yeah,
short
I
from
think we should.
in.
I'm down.
Well,
So,
you and I had the
the only
same idea at the same time, so.
Okay. So the only thing I always tell people, I always have like a little, 5 minute
Disclaimer.
spiel that I give. Yeah, well, it's not even a disclaimer. It's more like, this is how it's gonna go. Because the thing is, like I've been doing this a long time now, and I've learned a few things about how to my way of approaching that. So anyway, sort of how I approach it is I always kind of talk about what I can do and what I won't do. So for example, whenever I do readings, I always tell people you can tell me as little or as much as you like. I prefer a little less to begin with, because then I can sort of work as a open vessel, you might say. I always like to have like a topic that you want some guidance or insight on. The only things I don't read on is I don't read on death, because I find that it's a little bit dicey or hinging on immoral, because you never know. Somebody can be like, so when is grandma going to die?
Yeah,
I might not want to get involved in that conversation, so I don't read on death. And I always don't read on other people's lives that are not directly related to your own. Because as I tell all my clients, that's a lot like looking in someone else's underwear drawer. You can do it, but it's a little creepy, and you might not like what you find. I think it's a good kind of rule of thumb. Don't be peeking on other people's lives if it's not directly related to your own. And that's pretty much it. So as long as I've got something to go on, and another thing, if you don't want to know, don't ask, because I'm pretty much straight from the hip.
All right. Yeah, but see, that's what a lot of people like, is they like just tell me how it is, because a lot of people, they go around wishy-washy, and then, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know.
Well, I do a thing that I call tough love. Don't ask me questions if you don't want to know the answer, because I have, we all have certain things we want to know about in life, but there's, some stuff that you're already going to know, and I'm just going to either affirm for you or sort of confirm, and that's a lot of what tarot does anyway. So there's a certain amount of divination that can be achieved, but I never tell people in absolutes. I always talk about probability, because let's face it, life can throw you a curveball. You might make different decisions than what I tell you is best in whatever area we're talking about. So that's just my approach.
Sure.
I kind of try to keep it very grounded, because there's a lot of what's a non-F-bomb way of saying this?
Well, you can use. We use the word duck. Use the word duck.
There's a lot of ducking liars out there and fools. So yeah, so I try to keep things very grounded. Like I said, having been a big old skeptic myself, I would rather just tell people exactly what I see, how I see it, than give you a short-term comfortable lie.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. All right.
I appreciate that type of stuff.
So, Mr. Ringo.
Yep.
You're up.
Yep.
That, sir.
So, Alyssa, I'm not sure I have a really specific topic. Is that going to impede your ability
It's an area of your life. It's just an area of life of that you'd like some guidance or insight on.
Golf carts.
Sure.
Golf carts. Yeah, I'm going to be of no use to you in that department. You're like, don't corner too fast. This is good advice.
No, I can't really think. There's nothing that really comes to mind. I'm typically the type of person that does what I want when I want, and live. Tomorrow might not be there, so I enjoy life. So I can't really think of anything that's coming to mind right now that
Okay.
is itching my brain.
Okay. Okay. So that's one of my.
Okay, let's say career job. I'm not working.
Career. You're not working? Is that what you said?
No. I've been sort of
Okay.
retired.
Okay, that's what I was just going to ask you is, do you want to be working?
I keep myself busy.
Do you miss working,
Okay.
Gringo? Do you miss hanging out with the boys? Shop talk?
Playing live, maybe.
I miss playing live. Oh my
I
god!
do.
Bringing your lunch pail to work every day.
Yeah, I never had a fail, but yeah.
All right.
Will Ringo be indecisive for the rest of his life?
Ringo, this isn't a more or
I'm
less
gonna
challenge. You can't come up with an answer, you know.
I did.
say yes and no. Maybe.
I did. I incorporated a company in November, so, but it's kind of.
So are you a Libra or a Gemini or a Pisces?
I'm a Pisces.
You're a Pisces?
You're Pisces.
Yeah. That's why. Okay, so I'll tell you a little something. Anytime you see a bicorporeal sign, the Libras, Geminis, and Pisces, these people always get a lot of non-F-bomb words. I'm trying to. You guys have given me a chore. I swear, like a well-educated sailor. But those bicorporeal signs tend to get a lot of crap for being indecisive because typically they can see both sides of things.
Oh my god, I'm a Gemini and I'm totally like that. I'll ask myself something and I'll fight it out. It's like, oh, you should do this, but you're gonna do this, and you know that you should. Yeah, it's like I'll have a even at work.
You did this, and you're gonna find, and that's one of the biggest challenges for Gemini people is that they tend to see we see the twins. Everybody thinks of Gemini as being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's a little bit of truth to that, but that depends on the type of Gemini you are, because every single sun sign that we talk about, whether you're anything from an Aries to a Pisces, all the way around the wheel, there is only you that operates like you. Your chart will not be repeated for 26,000 years.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it has to go through a full procession before another chart or another person could be born in the exact same configuration as your own. So it's pretty interesting.
Wow.
That is actually, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Oh, so there's a lot of individuality. I always tell people, when you read your horoscope, if you do, if you know your ascending sign, that's a better horoscope for you to read.
Is that the opposite of your birth sign or whatever? The ascending sign?
No. So your ascending sign, what that represents, incidentally, I happen to have some props here.
All right.
As the world ends, we have the band of the zodiac, right? So we're sitting over here in the northern hemisphere. So when the sun hits us in Canada, it's going to hit us sort of right there, which that doesn't help when I don't have it up high enough for you to see. But as the world is turning, there's what's called the band of the zodiac, and wherever our horizon is, so in this case, the horizon would be right here, there's a sign that's going to rise up over the horizon. So if you were to stand outside your door right now and look to the east, there'll be a sign that's coming up over the horizon depending on which sign it is, up to 2 hours. So that changes very rapidly. So your ascending sign is actually what's kind of thought of as more accurate than your sun sign, because sun sign horoscopes didn't become popular until about the late 1960s, early 1970s. Because the reason for this is because essentially horoscopes weren't typically done for just anybody and everybody. You had to be somebody important to have it done, historically speaking, like a king or a queen, prince or princess. And generally back in those times, thank God it's changed. But if you were a king or a queen and you were having a child, there would be people there to witness the birth.
Right.
I would not want to be there. I would not want that.
Yeah.
Having had a couple of kids myself, I'm like, no thanks, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even want my mom there anymore.
Right? It's just, yeah, no. But the thing is that the way horoscopes used to be cast or created was at the birth, the moment of birth, at the child's first breath, that initiating force or life force energy, that was what would decide the sign under which someone was born. And that only changed in like, yeah, go ahead.
That's why the time, is so important when you were born, not so much the day.
Absolutely.
I get that now because I've had a lady tell me like I was born in double Gemini or something, right? Because of the time of day I was born. She said, "So you're a real mess."
No, you're not. You have to be very careful. So you just got to be careful about, the things that you listen to and attach to your personality. Because the thing is when we look at horoscopic astrology from a natal perspective, there are so many things going on, and being a double Gemini, that could just mean that your sun is in Gemini and perhaps your ascendant is in Gemini. So that means they sort of occupy the same space, which, depending on some other factors, can really amplify that mercurial Gemini energy. Make you super intellectual, super smart. You want to talk, you want to read, you want to share ideas, but you don't know where you put your keys. You're like,
welcome to my life. Yeah.
What
did I walk into this room for?
Yeah. That just comes with age, though. I do that all the time. I'm like,
aging. Good.
I've been looking in the fridge for 5 minutes, but I'm seeing nothing here that what was I doing? Yeah. So, yeah, it's just read your ascending sign if you know it. And also, if you really want to get a good sense, it can be important to track your moon sign as well, because every month you'll have what's called a lunar return. And in that lunar return, will give you some perspective on some of the stuff you might expect within a 28-day span. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, if one cares to do it, it can get very, very intricate.
So that's like where you get into like the retrograde stuff and Mercury in retrograde, where everybody blames the stars.
Which is completely ridiculous. I get so pissed off about that because right now we've just gone into yet another Mercury retrograde. So that happens several times a year. It's not just a one and done kind of thing. And Mercury does wreak a little bit of havoc in some people's lives, because what's happening is Mercury, the planet, rules communication, contracts, transportation, to some degree commerce and trade, and the way we listen, the way we learn. That's why, like, during a retrograde period, double check every email you send.
Make sure you read it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some things in the past that were, let's say, less than wise because I wasn't paying attention. And I won't blame that entirely on Mercury retrograde, but what happens is there's an increase in the potential for wires to get crossed, for lack of a better way to put it, because that's what Mercury does, is it wants to open lines of communication. And so it can really gum things up. But that being said, everybody will experience it differently. You might have a Mercury retrograde where you're like, oh my God, I found my keys. They were in the refrigerator. Something ridiculous like that. Where my phone might explode, my computer will probably die 3 different ways, and I can't go to the store and get milk because my bank account gets locked out. So for some people, some retrogrades are going to be very intense and potentially, cause some pretty significant delays. Whereas other people, they're just going to be like, ho hum, another day at the track, so it really depends on what becomes active for you personally in your specific chart. So,
and what you do with it.
And what you do with it, because if you freak out, of course it's going to feel like the end of the world. Why wouldn't it? So it's one of my little pet peeves, because really all of the stuff that, we are subject to, or that is in our environment, if you want to put it that way, it's there to help us work to our highest good. I mean, it might sound very new agey or cheesy to say that, but the truth of the matter is, when you're hit with a bunch of retrograde energy, that's the opportunity you need to revisit, revise, reassess, renew, go back and everything, instead of just, there you go. And, so that is usually intended to work to your embetterment, so you're not sitting there going, well, I don't know what happened. I didn't back up my file. I can't remember my password.
Yep.
Yeah, I went there. I did it.
Yeah. Back to the tarot cards. So how do you want to begin? Like you just deal them out, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull 3 cards for you. So if you said you wanted to kind of look at your career. You said you're semi-retired. So I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, unless you tell me otherwise, that you're kind of enjoying that semi-retirement. But when and if things will shift, how, right? So, you miss it. You miss it. Okay,
I do.
so here's the thing. Oh wait, I'm not done yet. So, like I said, I do shoot from the hip. So if I say anything that you don't like, feel free to ignore it. But I have to shift because certain parts of my anatomy are getting quite numb. I won't go into detail about that. I'll spare you.
Need a bigger cushion.
I really do. I've been complaining to my husband. I'm like, I need a new chair because things are getting kind of flat. So I expect a new chair any day now. But anyway.
Excellent.
Right?
Yeah, any day, husband.
Do. Yep. Tick, tick. Things are only going to get flatter, okay? So, you always got to be thinking about how to get what you need in life. Okay, so I'm just going to give you some advice as opposed to any prognostication. And you have to do the woo-woo fingers in order for it to work, just so you know. So the first card that I'm seeing is the 5 of Cups, all right? And this is what it looks like. And so what this signifies is it's kind of, whenever we see 5s in the minor arcana and tarot, it sort of talks about this halfway point in a journey. So that tells me that this semi-retirement has been fairly recent-ish. And then there's a great deal of, you've got somebody in your life that's like, everything's great, you're home, you can do what you want to do, you can, that kind of feeling. But you're over here looking at, yeah, but I'd rather be doing more of this because I miss it. I really miss it. And so it's kind of like you're going through this period of adjustment and adapting to the way life is right now. And not to be too personal, but I did warn you, I shoot from the hip. There can be some sort of melancholic feelings around this new semi-retirement. And so it's a bit of an obstacle for you because on one hand, there's still this creative energy that you need to kind of put forward and out into the world, but you're feeling kind of stifled. A little like, I would like some room to breathe. I would like some room to be who I am without the obligation of having to be obligated, for lack of a better term. So the thing is that's going to help you, because one thing that tarot is really good at is offering us the poison and the remedy. So the thing that makes us feel like shit and the thing that's going to fix it. And that is focusing on what you can accomplish rather than what you're not able to do. So that might mean revisiting some old projects, looking back at things that you're like, put that on the shelf until I got time. Well, guess what? You got time. So use it. So that's that 5 of Cups. So instead of, like I said, lamenting and feeling kind of like a F-bomb quacking duck or whatever you're saying, my life is not where it should be because some of these choices were quote unquote kind of taken away. It's a bit of circumstances alongside of timeliness, you might say. But instead of focusing on what you feel that you have lost, it's time to really revisit some things that perhaps you've left for a later date, So in other words, get into the back of your refrigerator, find that yogurt, pull it out. Because we all have that yogurt in the back of the fridge in our lives. I don't care what the topic is, but there's something waiting for you to give it some time and focus. And the more that you do that, you'll feel that sense of fulfillment and happiness, where right now there might be a little like, could be better. So does that make sense for you so far?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next stuff. So,
I don't yogurt, though, but
sorry?
I don't like yogurt, but yeah.
Oh, well, then skip the yogurt. That's the only thing that you can have in your fridge that can last almost indefinitely because it just gets more yogurty.
Yeah.
Good thing. Okay, so the next thing I would like to talk to you about is what you can do currently. What the things that you can focus on. So the four, the Four of Wands is the card that's come up for you for the right here and the right now, and what it represents is kind of a happy home or a happy space that feels like home that one can find inspiration from. You know, I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but there's a little man and a little woman there, and they're celebrating. They're sort of in this position to where they're holding up these bouquets of flowers, and there's festooned, you know, these little flowers up here are festoons, and they indicate celebration and happiness, and that's because there's a sense of stability in the home. And so what you can do is you can start to create, because I think there's a little bit of fear of stagnation. It's kind of like, you know, I don't have to do anything, so I don't have to do anything. But I think that if you were to, sorry?
No, I said right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm not.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, but what I keep hearing is maybe like home studio or a place where you can be creative. Something again where you can really focus on those projects that you sort of left on the shelf, because now that you have time to do it, it's time to do it. So again, going back to that idea, like I kept hearing home studio or something of that sort. And we don't know what it is that you do, because it's the first time I've met you, so there's that. But it might be worthwhile to think about creating some space within your home or within near proximity to your home. So maybe like basement, garage, but not like right in like the main portion of the house. I don't know if that
New
makes
man
sense.
cave, buddy.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that that would be a good way for you to move forward. But there is one caution. Okay, so it's not that you're afraid of hard work. Okay, that's not my issue for you. But I think you want things to move a little faster than what they might be able to do at this timing. So, you know, again, bringing it back down to earth, like getting a hold of building materials as an example is going to be a giant pain in your ass. I mean, every Home Depot, as far as, you know, you can go, you can't go in, at least assuming you're in Canada.
Yep.
You know, yeah, so that's going to be a little bit difficult because you will find that there are things that you will still feel sort of barred from, like prevented from moving forward as quickly as you would like. And so it's kind of that indication that, you know, as much as life can kind of present challenges and difficulties, you just need to kind of keep pushing at it, and you're going to kind of find yourself back in that creative space that makes you feel alive and feel vital and as though you're, you know, contributing in the world in the way that you want to. But just, you know, again, don't be afraid of this transition, because it's just a transition. And even if you didn't choose it in the way that you would have preferred, you know, be it by timing or by circumstance, just understand that everything works on a grand clockwork that none of us are completely in charge of, and that we have to adapt ourselves to, because when it's time, it's time. So, but that doesn't mean that the ride is over. It just means now you've found a new hill to climb. So approach it as an adventure. You know, take the ass off it. Changing gears. Yeah, exactly. And I think that if you kind of look at things from a slightly different perspective and say, okay, well, how can I bring back into my life the things that I want? You know, then start imagining, start building and dreaming, and, you know, bringing all of those ideas, you know, into the physical world, instead of thinking about, well, geez, you know, when I was back over here, I was having a lot more fun than this shit. You know, so in other words, just don't spend as much time worrying about what you're not doing, because that's taking up the time that you could be using towards what you actually have been wanting. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm hearing that, and I've been listening to Ringo speak over the last couple of weeks about this or that or this or that, and that's cool. I think there's a connection there. That's really neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, I can go into more detail, but I don't want to get too personal. Because there's things I could probably say that would make it a lot harder, but I don't want to do that because, you know, sometimes, depending on the personality, some people like a bit of privacy.
Yes.
I think Ringo might be a little bit of a private person. I'm not quite sure about that, but well, it is 11 o'clock, guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep rolling, or
yeah, of course.
Like me.
I just want to say hi to
right.
we got a bunch of new people on here, eh? We got Hi, You're Beautiful and Pixie Faye, and I saw a bunch of other people too. They seem to be chatting away.
Yeah, I haven't seen much come up today,
Rose.
so I just recognized like about 6 or 7 of our common names that we have, but no other questions, nothing. It's been quiet.
Wow. So is that a good sign or a bad sign?
Well, no. It means people are paying attention.
Oh yeah.
Gross.
Oh.
Yeah.
Actually, these are coming in from Twitch.
Oh, they're from Twitch. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pixie Faye.
I know.
Do you believe in the Fae?
Do I believe in the Fae? That's a tough one. I believe that there are things that I don't understand.
That's nice. A very PC way of saying it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think again, anything's possible. I mean, we don't even know what's in the depths of our oceans. You know, I mean, there's things that we're just discovering. Like, wow, I totally didn't know that was floating around there. So far be it from me to say no way. It's like when people talk about, aliens and like ancient aliens. I can't even watch that show anymore. It just pisses me off. But not everything is ancient aliens. I love that guy's hair and everything, but not everything.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's funny you say that. Every time I see him, his hair's always up. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it got bigger for this every season that went by. It was just like
a little more hairspray.
Yeah. I'm like, did you watch that back later? And like, did you have the same feelings about your hair? I think it's possible.
Looks like somebody's been abducted and sucked through a UFO or portal.
Something, eh? Yeah.
Well, they started with his hair.
I have a question for you. George sometimes sees shadow people.
Now, yes.
Do you believe in like what do you think shadow people are?
Oh God, that's
your conscience.
I think. Well, again, it depends on what you're willing to entertain. I believe that shadow people are intelligent, but intelligent in a lesser way. I don't think that it depends on the type though too, because there's different kinds of shadow people. Some shadow people are not pleasant. You might need a little bit of sage or something. Then some are more of a kind of like a lesser intelligence. I always say, think of it this way. If we can agree that there's angels, most people talk about that all the time, my guardian angel, those sorts of things, then we can agree that there's other things. And that definition is very broad, So I think absolutely that there are shadow people. I think that, I've had experiences myself that have been a little like, what the hell was that? I've seen shadow people myself. And trust you me, I was, let's see, my son was about 2. So we were sitting in the living room of our old house, and I used to have to trap him in our living room because he's a little bit too smart for his own good. We're talking like evil genius budding.
Escape artist?
Yeah, escape artist, definitely. He used to knock off my the lamps off my end tables because he knew I would have to go get it, and then he would run away. I'm like,
Nice.
Wow. Crafty.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very smart,
So-
very, very smart.
Is there a difference between shadow people and a cloaked figure? Without a
I think
face?
so. Yeah. Well, most people, when they talk about shadow people, they see something that is not opaque, so it's somewhat transparent. It's shadowy.
Right.
It's usually humanoid in shape, and they usually move. You know, and some people will describe shadow people as a figure that will just sort of be standing in a room or sitting somewhere. But I think you have to be very careful about what you choose to interact with unless you're 100% sure with whom you're interacting, because there's, again, there's a lot of different things out there. And,
So on the
so
negative side, are the shadow, like, let's say a cloaked figure or shadow person, are they in any way just watchers and guardians, that sort of thing? Or
yeah,
do you have
I think it's
any...
entirely possible there too. I think you have to, okay, so the way that I advise people when dealing with these kinds of things is pay very close attention to how you feel, like how your body is reacting. Because your brain's going to make up all kinds of different things like, nah, my eyes were playing tricks on me. I'm tired. I stayed up too late, drank too much coffee,
Right.
whatever. You're going to try to rationalize that which you cannot easily define. So the body, our physical body is going to react. There's that old, imagine biting into a dill pickle and then you salivate. We can't help it. It's part of that autonomic response system. So if you encounter something that you are kind of curious about, if you can keep yourself from running out of the room or flicking on the light super fast, just take a moment to see if you can observe how you feel, because your physical senses sort of precede your intellectual senses, because the rational brain is always going to go, is it going to eat me or am I going to eat it? That's how we think about everything. As mammals, it's kind of what we do. So it's very important, when interacting with things, to kind of get that sense, be impressionable and feel it out, because that will tell you far more than anything you see on the Discovery Channel, TLC, or late night TV.
Yeah.
Because you can relate to things.
Of course, unless you're watching us.
Well, I didn't know there was such a thing as shadow people. It's Derek that when I told this story. But what the experience I had, I'm going back a long time now, 1977, March 1977, the first time. And I was still in England then, and it was later, I was going to bed and switched the TV off, turn the light off. And, at the bottom end of the room, we had a window and these curtains, and this figure was stood there, right? And it was actually weird, because I thought, it's not a shadow, it feels like something physical is in the room, And I remember thinking, like, we had a dog. I thought, I went into the kitchen. I mean, it lasted for a brief 2 or 3 seconds, if that, right? And I thought, well, Pedro's not barking or anything. It can't be. It's like, oh, forget it. So I went to bed, and the next day I went into work, and to one of my work colleagues, he said, and I said, I feel like depressed. He goes, do you want to go for a beer at lunchtime? And no, I'm not really in the mood, And the whole day, I felt something. I went and did a gig that night, and it was just a weird thing. I thought, like really down. And then that was Friday. This was a Thursday night. Friday, and then on Saturday, about 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call, and my dad's been in this car accident, right? I thought, wow, right. And that, I just thought, my dad's been in a car accident, He's in the eye hospital because he had glass in his eye and all that. And so, didn't pay, just forgot about this happening. But then I'm watching this show, a few months later, it's on TV, it's a documentary about, I don't know, the spirits, whatever, on the BBC. And there's this lady, and she's in Scotland, in Glasgow, and she's talking about this. She said, I was walking down the street one day, and I went past a shop window, and there's this figure in the doorway, and she described this shadow. He looked like Zorro, but he had a hat on, long cloak. You couldn't see a face.
Right.
And he's, about my height. He was tall in the corner. Anyway, she described exactly what she saw in the shop doorway. The shop I saw in my living room. And then she said, as soon as I saw him, I got this awful feeling of melancholy. And I thought, and I had this flashback. I thought, that was it. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't whatever.
Yep.
I was very melancholy. This feeling just came over. And that was the first time I thought, that was weird. That was very real. And, you know, getting the bad news, you know, less than 48 hours later, that was kind of weird. And the other one was more recent, but it's still a long time ago, was 1989. And I was driving back from Toronto, and I was like, I can't remember where I was. I was just passing past the Scarborough Town Centre there, Markham Road. And I looked in the rearview mirror. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, 2:30, 3 o'clock coming back. And it was like the same kind of silhouette, hat, no face, head and shoulders. And he was sat in the back seat of the car in the middle when I looked up very briefly. And again, I felt like, wow, that wasn't, the 77 guy. That was a different guy, you know. And I remember thinking, that's weird. I just felt, well, I didn't feel melancholy, so can't be anything. Oh, I was just, you know, tired late at night. But it wasn't like black. He was like an amber color, like slightly fluorescent kind of rust color, right? And I'm like, you know. Anyway, I think that was a Friday night. On the Sunday, we get the phone call from England, and my father-in-law died. You know, I thought, wow, was that connected? Was that again kind of weird? You know, but I now when things have happened, I kind of go, no, that's not, because I didn't get a feeling, you know what I mean? So those are the two experiences I thought that was kind of really, really, really strange. But the most recent one was actually here in this room, right here in the basement. And I was sat, and it was a couple of years ago, and I was sat over like a bar area, and I was like watching something on the TV screen there. And I have like pictures with glass frames and tickets from concerts and things like that. And there was a reflection in the in one of the frames, and it was like this. It was a woman. I'm assuming it was a woman because she looked like a bride, but she wasn't in white. She was in grey. And again, that was when I actually thought there's someone physically in this room, right? But it happened very quickly, and she went past the shoulder before I had time. She went into the bookcases, you know. It was like weird. I thought there was definitely somebody in this room, and I don't know how long after that I had I was in like the washroom next door, and I was brushing my teeth, and wasn't anywhere near the glass tumbler, you know, on the countertop, and it just started jiggling all on its own, and I'm like,
cool.
you know, did I just bang it? I couldn't get it to do that. It did it for about a good few seconds. It just started going on its own, and I'm like, and then you know, I'm trying to do it, make it do that by tilting it. I couldn't get it to do it. Could not get it to do it, and that was that was strange. You know, it's like wow. So I don't know, you know, and even more recently than that, like Liz, my wife, comes down here. So I'm stuck here. You know, I've got the computer there, and I'm like that. And sometimes she come in, and I'm like, oh, geez, you know, like let me know you're coming in because you kind of focused at something, you know, and you jump, right? And this is only about in the last 2 months, 6 weeks. And I'm sat here like that, you know, typing or whatever on the computer, and a hand went on my right shoulder, and I thought it was Liz going, I told you, and there's nobody there. There's absolutely nobody here. And I went upstairs and thought, wow, you know, it's like, ooh. It's like, you know, it's very, very strange. It's very, very strange when that happens. You think, am I going crazy?
I don't think so at all. I think that, you know, those experiences, if you're fortunate and / unfortunate enough to have, depending on how they go, you know, I think it's pretty fascinating. And I mean, I've had actually, when we moved into this house here, and it's funny because I didn't tell my husband about it for a long time because he already thinks I'm weird enough. But we had lived in the house for about 3 weeks, and it's an old home. It was built in 1860, so it used to be a post office, and then after that it became a general store / post office, and then later on it became a horse farm, and then a residence. So it's seen a lot of different incarnations long before we came to it. And one morning, and trust me, I'm not one of those people that are like given to these sort of things anyway. But I was laying there and I was sleeping, and I just had this feeling like, Alyssa, open up your eyes. And I'm like, what? I just had, it was more of a feeling than anything verbal. I open my eyes, and I see at the end of our bedroom, there was a wee little hallway there, and I see this man. He was about 6'2", 6'3", like a big guy, and he's wearing old denim coveralls and like a short sleeve button down light cotton shirt that had blue, yellow, and white sort of check pattern on there. He had an old crew cut and piercing blue eyes, and he looked like he was probably around 60, 70 years old. And I mean, and he was just standing there, and I'm like, nope. And I closed my eyes. And then, like, I waited a couple seconds because I'm like, I don't want to have to wake him up, because I'm going to wake him up. I'm going to kick him and wake him up and tell him go deal with whatever that is. And of course, I peek one eye open just a wee bit, and I look and nothing's there. And I'm like, I don't know whether to feel relieved or not. But it hadn't happened again since then. And then when we lived in Brampton, there was 3 different occasions that I saw shadow figures. One when I was telling the story a little bit about I was with my son in the living room, and you could see our kitchen from the living room. And I saw, and it happened on a couple different occasions, this particular shadow, whatever the hell it was, just would go booking across the kitchen, like from one end to the other, just boom, and be gone. And I don't know what to make of that. I just know I saw it, And then I actually have a photograph. My son was about 2.5, maybe 3 years old, and he had scribbled on the wall. And as an artist, I wasn't angry even in the slightest. I'm like, oh my god, that's so cute.
Right on, yeah. Frame it.
Good job. Mama's proud. Don't get arrested. but I took a photograph of it because I asked him, I'm like, what is this a picture of? And he says, oh, it's the man that lives in the bathroom and the closet. And I'm like, okay, then. The man that lives in the bathroom and the closet. I'm like, I don't know if I like this guy. And then he never really spoke about it. But then years after, like, I think it would have been, I don't know, probably 2008, I had a friend who was a medium and could see, she was very clairvoyant. And I asked her, is there anything I need to know about up in here? Because I'm what you would call spontaneously clairvoyant. Once in a while I see things, but not often, because I don't really like to. I'm like, I'm perfectly fine not seeing whatever, because it kind of freaks me out a little bit. And she's like, oh yeah, there's a man that is walking across the because the way our house was situated, there was like a hall, sort of a hallway, because it was open concept, really, and the upstairs, the second floor. So there was a banister that had, there was like one doorway for the bathroom, and then my kids' rooms were on the other end, and the master bedroom was on the other end. And she's like, oh yeah, he just walks back and forth up there. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to live in the living room now. This is great. Living.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that creeped me out. And after that, I'm like, I'm just not going to ask things I don't want to know when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear my name being called once in a while.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah.
Like clear as a bell, and no one's home, right?
Yeah.
So
the closer to the grave you get, the easier it is to hit. The volume goes up.
Yeah. So I have a question. I don't know. I've always been a little skeptical about not giving too much information, because some people are good at reading other people, and they just kind of come up with something you want to hear, right? But something happened to me April 22nd. I had a really bad fall, and I don't know if you noticed at the beginning, the guys were asking how I was doing, but I felt through a hole in the floor in a barn, and I landed on the next floor. Yeah, down below. Yeah, I've heard of that before. Have you? But
well, I've not done it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Other people have done it in the same barn as well.
Wow.
And yeah, I find out now. And I just had a super bad fall. I shattered my scapula. I had 2 compression fractures, 3 fractured vertebrae, 9 broken ribs, and a partially collapsed lung.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like what's telling me is you're an overachiever.
Yeah, I've never broken a bone in my body my entire life, so I had to make up for it, I guess. That's what people are saying.
Take it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way I fell, landing on my shoulder and my upper back on the one side, a lot of doctors looked at me and said, "Oh my God, you're so lucky." And I'm like, I just fell, right? And I hurt myself. But as more said it, I heard, "You're lucky to be alive," right? That kind of stuff. And then I've talked to other people, and people have their beliefs or things of what happened and so. But what I'm asking is, during the time I fell from the top floor down to the bottom floor, did something happen as I was falling?
Okay.
I don't know if you need anything else, but
okay. So when you say did something happen, are you meaning something that maybe you wouldn't physically see?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So give me a second. So this is what I would say to that. Sometimes things are going to happen to us, but the worst things that happen, they're worst things that can happen, but in the best way possible. And sometimes when the things happen, it's a matter of a confluence of events and influences. And I would say that what happened to you is kind of a matter of, it wasn't so much accidental in the most granular terms, in so much that, maybe not something that you expected to happen, but I think it was, again, sort of a thing that, excuse me for putting it this way, but kind of needed to happen. So I don't know if this is going to make any sense to you, but it's kind of like, I feel, how to put this, it's almost like a slide, if that makes any kind of sense. It's almost kind of like a hitting but a sliding sensation. So it's kind of like, even if there wasn't anything specifically there to guide you down, there was still something to guide you down. So it could have probably ended a lot worse. Now I'm just gonna,
the slide is exactly the way I fell through the floor. It's like a trap door, and it was up a bit, and I stepped on it, and I slid down that.
Okay, hold on though. Was there a potential that you could have landed on something that could have caused impaling injuries?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Okay. Because what was coming to the surface for me is it's like there was a potential, I'm just trying to, for lack of a better way to put it, describe like cuttings, like a cutting possibility, like blood, lots of blood.
No.
So that could have come through either landing on something. Yeah. So that's what I mean. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels to me like there was definitely something there to help guide you, and the injuries could have been worse.
Cradle your fall.
Yeah.
Well, this is what came up, because nobody knows how my head did not hit the floor, because my impact zone is right here, and that's what happens to everybody. If you land on your upper back or your shoulder, my head did not touch the floor.
And there was no lung puncture?
What's that?
No lung puncturing? There's no lung puncturing or anything like that?
My one lung was partially collapsed.
Okay. So maybe that's kind of, because sometimes I don't always say things the right way, but I felt like a puncture or an impaling or something like that, where something was pushing through softer tissue. That's why I was saying like blood.
Well, that's probably all. I did have bleeding inside, and that's probably from the ribs breaking, right?
So
I guess that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, those are your cutting things, right? The ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really
yeah.
But you might have been saved by Ringo's voice of an angel.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
Touched by an angel.
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't want to say too much because I was just trying to see if I could hear something, but because
like,
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, for me, the thing that just came through the strongest is kind of that smacking and sliding feeling.
Yeah.
That's in terms of like the best scenario in the worst case scenario, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like obviously it could have been a lot worse, but sometimes when accidents occur, it's like, I don't know how to say this. It's like a 7-10 split when you're bowling. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like everything just flies out, all over the place, but these two pins, for whatever reason, are still standing. And it feels like it was that kind of situation. It was like the odds were not in your favor. God, that was bad. But, it happened in the best possible way in the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so
the best worst case.
I tend to think of that less as a matter of chance, and that's why I said it's not that it was just accident and that's such a dumb thing to say because accidents do occur, but it's kind of like when they do, there's a reason for it, and I couldn't possibly tell you what that is because there could be like 175 reasons, but it's kind of like I feel, okay, I'm just going to use an analogy because that's the best thing I can do for you. So when a child is born, there's somebody to catch that child. So obviously it doesn't land on the floor because that would be bad.
Right.
But it almost feels that way. It's like there's just kind of this little bit of guiding that you're going to get hurt. It's going to suck, but it could be a lot worse if I wasn't here to help you, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. And that's kind of, how people sometimes say, oh, so-and-so is looking out for you, people that are gone, people that are past.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to get at. If you caught a hint of that.
Well, because, okay, so again, kind of going back to that idea of, for me anyway, I feel things in my body. And what I feel, it's like I said, that kind of smack slide, but also kind of the, like, when you're a kid and they have those stupid slides at the park.
Yeah.
And they've got those little banks so you don't fly off the slide.
That's
but
right.
It's like that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like that feeling of being kind of guided to your destination that's going to suck, but there's still that sort of guiding hand. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Because Derek said the word, he said cradled.
Yes,
thing.
sorry.
Yeah, that's another way to put it, certainly. But it's those kinds of things are very tricky because I feel like there's a lot of stuff at play, There's a lot of different things going on. It's not just you stepped in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, that's part of it, but
that's obvious, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's duh, but I think there's a lot of other things that sort of, feature in why when.
Go ahead. No, my internet's a little glitchy tonight, so I'm lagging a bit. So I have a question. I don't know if it's a.
Well, Ringo's
frozen
there.
Frozen again. Yeah.
I was without giving too much away. I mean, I know you've got some live events coming up. Later on this month. And one of the things I was wondering about was because I first heard of this back in the hippie days when hippies came, Woodstock and all that. The activation of the third eye. If you could just briefly
46 and 2.
explain without giving too much away?
Yeah, so activating the third eye. So one of the things that I do is I do group guided hypnotic meditation. So I kind of combine hypnosis with meditation. And so in the coming month in June, I'm hosting that. And so people will tune in via Zoom and hang out with me for about an hour. And I use post-hypnotic suggestion to help one activate and open the third eye. And essentially the proposed results of that is becoming more sensitive to the energetic aspects of life in the world and being able to perceive more. Because if you're familiar with the pineal gland, which is in the region somewhere in the center of your brain or close to it, it actually has more rods and cones in it than your eyeball. Yeah, it's actually it's.
And where can people get you on this? Is that at your northstarmystic.com or?
Yep, sure is. Yep, it's if you go to the northstarmystic.com, the month's events are always posted right on the homepage, and you can sign up. So that particular event is 2 sessions, and 1 ticket covers both sessions. So I try to keep it accessible for people, if that's something you're interested in trying out. And if you've never experienced hypnosis but are interested in, exploring that, this is a really great way to do it. All you need is a pair of headphones and an hour of uninterrupted peace and an open mind. And it's a very lovely experience.
Awesome.
I get to go for the ride too, so that's a huge thing. So I see you're back, Ringo. You had a question for me?
Yeah, I was. I don't know if it's an easy one to answer, but so someone told me months ago that my father, who passed away in 2000, seems to be very restless for some reason.
Oh, very restless.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you feel that there's any evidence of that?
No, I'm not really sure what they would be. I feel I've got a connection, but it's not. I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah. So, mediumship is not something that I really do a whole lot of. It's one of those things that for me is very spontaneous, or if I'm in the right frame of mind for it. So I wouldn't comment on that. But what I will tell you is be very discerning and cautious, because some people will say things and they may be very well meaning and their intentions are good, but they might be full of stuff.
Doo-doo.
Byproduct of bovine, bovine byproduct.
Back material.
Yes. So, I don't know. I mean, I can definitely recommend a couple of people that I can set you up to talk to if you would like to. I have a pretty large network of people that do similar things and different things than I do myself. So, it's kind of not really in my wheelhouse per se. But some things.
Right.
I get it. I kind of I learned when I was doing the ghost hunting thing that I might be sensitive to, like, I guess I could explore being a medium, but there's a lot of reasons why. I've actually also been asked to help with some issues that were named, but I've really never. I've been fascinated by it. I know I have a connection. I just like the question about my dad, though. I don't feel it. Right? I don't feel it. I don't have any thoughts, or it's just. In fact, I think as far as I'm concerned, he's at peace, and I'm like I will. I've got a lot of his old tools. I like tinkering and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I'll find new tools. I'll think of something like that I have to do in it. Like, oh wait, I get this sort of feeling that I should look in a certain drawer, and sure enough, he'll have there'll be a tool there that he's handmade, and it's like wow, So I give him credit you for helping me out a lot. But yeah, I was curious. It was mentioned to me a while back, and I was curious as to why that would happen.
You know, I would just say, again, be very discerning in who you listen to, because sometimes, you know, depending on the individual, I'm not a huge fan of walking up to people and being like, your Aunt Martha wants to talk to you. She wants me to tell you to put your damn, you know, records away at night.
You're not from Jersey.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not from Jersey. My hair's not big and blonde enough, nor do I have nails like from no. But I mean, whatever. Do you. But I feel like that's very intrusive myself. I mean, I'm fascinated by it, but I think, like, with the work I do, is very much consent is king. You know, if you don't want to know something, I'm not going to be like, oh, by the way, your Pisces is conjunct Mars and you're screwed. You know, I mean, it's not helpful. You know, and you know, it's not. I don't know. I find that can be just very disruptive for people, because that's going to linger in your thoughts, and you're going to be like, oh, did I piss him off? And I didn't know I pissed him off. You know,
right?
And you know, from a cultural perspective, you know, my belief structure says when somebody moves on from the physical body, you know, unless something very traumatic has happened, or unless there are mitigating circumstances, most souls move on. Most souls don't want to hang out here and linger around and, you know, follow you and make sure that you're brushing your teeth after your dinner. You know, I mean, they've got better things to do. You know, when my dad passed away, it was kind of funny. He passed away in 2015, and we both knew it was a very interesting experience, because you know, he kept talking about his death, that it was imminent, you know, which as a child you're like, yeah, whatever, you're just being crotchety, you know, like I didn't want to hear those things. It was very much, you know, on his mind. And within I'd say probably about 2 or 3 months of his passing, the last few times I called or I talked to him, he kept telling me, coyotes come for me, you know. And so for us, that's a way of saying that there's a recognition that, you know, the body is not going to be housing us for much longer. And then I went back home and I saw him in 2015, and it was funny because I was driving home with my sister, and I just looked at her and I'm like, he's not going to be here much longer. It's so weird. I just knew, like, on a very you know, you just know, you know. And I think when people are preparing to pass, unless it's an accident, a lot of time, and even in cases where it's an accident, people just know. There's a sense there's something that's changed, and I don't think we should be afraid of it, you know. And when he did pass, you know, I had it in my mind, because I'm like, we have all kinds of things we've talked about, all kinds of agreements we made, and I fully and completely expected him to haunt me at the most inopportune moments, you know, because that's the kind of relationship we had, you know.
Right.
Like when I was 17, he asked me, what do you want for your birthday? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, okay, you get a donut dipped in shit. And I'm like, okay. Well, let's go.
Nice.
Yeah, he's just that kind of dude. And it was about 3 days after he passed, and I had a dream about him. And so sometimes we can have dreams about people that have passed, and they are visiting you. They are absolutely, unequivocally visiting you. And you're having an interaction with that person's consciousness or spirit or whatever you want to call it. And that was one of the moments where I can't describe for you how I knew, but I just felt it. There's like, you know, when you're near somebody, you just feel their energy, and you feel their personality and the way they talk, or the way. And he didn't speak a word to me, which was really annoying in this dream. And then I didn't see him again for, I don't know, probably about 2 years. And then not too long ago, I had another dream with him in it, and it was really an amazing experience. I woke up and I was like crying, but it was a happy cry, but also that sort of longing for the person's presence, because you feel it's so real, and because it is real, you know. And then when you wake up, you're like, damn it, like I didn't get to ask that one thing that I kept meaning to ask you or tell you or whatever. And then we wake up and like, well, business as usual, you know, and you know, these interactions happen all the time. And I think that the more we open ourselves up to exploring and experiencing those things, the more we will get for our effort, you know. Just keep spiraling out.
Yeah.
You mentioned tools, so I had to go there. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of connections in a lot of different things out there. Like I even had this happen. Like I can't get up the stairs yet, so I have a little bathroom on the main floor down here. It's not really equipped, but that's my bathroom right now. And I had this funny sensation in the morning when I go and wash my face and brush my teeth and comb my hair and all that. When I dried my face, I always just held the towel on my face and I'd kind of like smell it, and I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe what this smell is. It was so comforting, right? I couldn't figure it out. And then my wife said the other day, she said, oh, you know, I changed your towel for you. I brought you another towel. I go, oh, where'd you get the last towel? Like, and I told her, and she says, oh, I just had down here in the cupboard a bunch of towels from my mom when she passed. So after all this time, I was smelling that and I didn't even know it. And that just, when she told me that, I was like, oh my God, I just like, I freaking cried. It was such a cool connection.
And that's again sort of that evidence about trusting the body, because you know your olfactory, the sense of smell is one of our oldest senses. You know, it goes back to our more primordial selves, and it. I mean, if you think about it, you smell something that your grandmother cooked. It takes you right back to her kitchen. You're 6 years old. You're trying to figure out how you can get whatever she cooked. You know, even though you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, it just, you're right back there. And that's the way, like with past life regression, that's one of the things that one of the tools that I know was very reliable in helping a person to, you know, direct themselves towards those, you know, I don't know, memories. Because when I like to kind of describe it in terms of our DNA. So if you know that the DNA spiral. Well, helix, that's the word I was looking for.
There you go.
Yeah, that double helix, I mean, it's wound up super tight and it contains vast amounts of information. We can't even conceive of all the information that's in there. Like the Human Genome Project, you know, if you've ever heard of a guy named Bruce Lipton, read his book. That dude knows his shit.
Yeah.
But, you know, so part of the DNA's job, aside from telling us to grow toenails and, you know, other such important things, is to retain memory. Okay, so it literally retains memory, but not just your memories from your ancestors and your ancestors' ancestors, all the way back to the first man and the first woman, you know. And so there's this connection, this unbroken connection from parent to child, you know, all the way down to those being born today and dying today, that is connected. If you think about in those terms, that's literally what we're accessing. And you can dive into that through conducting a little bit of, you know, knob turning and button flicking and all this kind of stuff to make sure that the brain starts to, you know, relax enough, for lack of a better way to put it, so that we can access those things. And that's where all of those memories, you know, to some degree are stored.
That's amazing. So that's almost like animal instincts, kind of, because like an infant monarch butterfly flies back to where its mother was, and it's never traveled that before, but they just know to go there.
Yes, it's written in our DNA.
Wow.
You know, and if you think about it, I mean, let's like remove the spiritual aspect of it. If you think about the function of stem cells, and a stem cell can start out as a tooth or an eyelash, you know, or it doesn't have any, you know, pre-existing programming until we turn that programming on, and that's kept in the DNA. You know, because you unwind that double helix and it gets mighty long, and you see all these things that are connected. You know, that we're just, from a scientific perspective, we're just really starting to learn how to understand and unfold. You know, but and this is what's really cool is you start looking back into our ancient civilizations, and we look at our ancestors and, man, they didn't have smartphones. How the hell did they do anything? You know, I think all of us are past a certain age where we remember, you know, a rotary phone, and we remember cassettes, and for some of us maybe 8-track, you know, and then for some of us, for half the time when there was only black and white TV, you know, there's all of these things that you retain within you as memory that, you know, maybe you can't articulate in a way that somebody who's like 22 right now is going to fully and viscerally understand, but that that is retained in this space that, you know, is microcosmic. You know, when you think about how tiny that space is, like my brain just starts going, woo, keep going, you know, but that which we see in the physical is reflected in the non-physical. As above, so below. That's where that whole principle comes from, is everything that's written in the stars is acted out on the mundane plane, you know, and vice versa, you know, and you can see
Alyssa,
that in like, sorry.
Will you, I mean, this was quite fascinating. Will you come back and see us again? I mean, this is, we don't go overtime a lot, but I mean, yeah, very fascinating.
Wow.
Very,
45 minutes over.
That's okay.
I tend to have this effect on people, I've noticed.
No, this is great. I really, I wrote down actually a bunch of questions, but we kind of went off on some pretty cool tangents. And it was good to see Twitchers come in and comment. Yep. And no, that was good. Excellent. So we'd love to have you back again if you're game for that. Do you have anything you want to promote other than, like, we've been promoting your site, but any shout outs or anything you want to, again, we're on radio.
There's all kinds of
right.
Yeah, there's all kinds of people that I work with. So one of the biggest projects that we've got going right now is NSMA, or otherwise known as North Star Mystic Academy. So if you really want to get into learning some of the things that we've been talking tonight, I teach a bunch of them, and I have a couple instructors. I have one instructor, 111, and he teaches Elder Futhark runes. So if you've ever seen runes, it's stunning. Like, his work is just stunning, and I highly suggest, if you've got a passing interest in runes, check him out. He's got a course coming up on June 24th. I've got an Akashic Records class coming up, the certification level, on the next week, I think. I think it's on the 9th. There's also the meditations going on, and numerology as well. I teach Pythagorean numerology, so that's coming up as well in June. So if you check out the website, just go ahead and start yourself a little profile on there. Sign up for the magazine. I put out a monthly magazine every month, and there's all kinds of information crammed in there, and it's perfectly free. So definitely, you can download back issues too. It is crammed full of good stuff. So lots of information. Yeah.
Well,
I thank you so much.
I'm actually, if you can help me crack that hard drive, that would be awesome. So you got to hit.
Well, if I can't, I can hook you up with somebody who could.
Excellent.
So Heiko, bring us home, because I think our Twitchers are gone to bed, and
have they?
Yeah, we still have quite a few people listening.
Oh, they don't have the stamina. Oh, and there's one other thing. I'm just looking at these. I smell them all the time, and this is why I kind of brought this up, like with my accident and all the stuff that's been happening. I think my mom has been very present here over the last couple of weeks, and my wife did something yesterday which just blew my mind. Was my mom's favorite flower, and she always did this, and we have them growing outside. But my wife cut a couple lily of the valley and put them right beside my stand so I can smell them. And that just blew me away because that's something my mom always did. So
Nice. You married your mom.
That's one of the,
well,
yeah, that's one of the ways
a good person like her.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, believe it or not, that's one of the ways that spirits, of our loved ones can sort of show up, if you will, is they will kind of create an urge, around either us or somebody that they were close to in life as well. They'll kind of create that urge, like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should go pick some of those flowers because I bet you it'd be nice. Just little things like that. We don't recognize how permeable that little veil between ourselves and the other side is because it's not as thick as you think.
Because I always tell my wife, oh my God, I'm just so sorry you never got to meet her because I know they would have got along amazingly, like just amazingly. That's just how I feel.
Very quickly, they probably already did know each other. So one of the things I see very commonly in past life regression, as well as astrology, is a concept behind soul groups. So there will be people who tend to incarnate in groups with each other over and over and over again, in order to, again, learn some lessons, in ways that are conducive to the soul's expansion. So chances are they probably do have a connection beyond what you would know.
Oh my God. I could talk about this all night, but I know we can't. So,
so you got some goodbyes there, Hike?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I got an early morning. I got a bunch of readings.
Oh,
tomorrow,
you too, eh? Okay. Well, I want to thank fans that were a part of our show tonight, which was Sean, Patrick, Stephen, Kathy, Richard, Keisha, Mike, and there's that Pixie Faye. And I want to thank Alyssa for being with us, and I really hope you come back again sometime. You have an open invite. You just
thank you.
We'll just call you up sometime. It was wonderful.
Please do.
You can stay on once we go off, if you don't mind, for a minute.
Yep.
Okay. Sure, no problem. Thank you guys so very much.
Yeah. Thanks, George, for your trivia and your good stories. And and Ringo and Derek for getting all the stuff working. It's just wonderful. We got a great team here. Thanks again. And we're hoping to see everybody else again next Monday night at 9:30 right here on the Heikadelic Show. See ya.
Well, that's another wrap for the Heikadelic Show, folks, so time to get dirty. And don't forget, listen in next week on Monday night and every Monday after that for the Heikadelic Show at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like more information on the Heikadelic Show, please find us at www.theheikedelicshow.com or .ca. We'll see you all next week on the Heikadelic Show. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor for the Heikadelic Show, it's easy. Just send us an email at info@theheikedelicshow.com. Meanwhile, you can browse our website at www.theheikedelicshow.com or .ca. Click on our sponsor tab and find out more information on sponsorships. Thanks for joining the Heikadelic Show, fans.